All their great fear, all their problems with their country, but they're all waving their country's flag. What is that all about?
Moments ago, the president slamming members of the migrant caravan. Migrants are waving their own country's flags.
You want to be a part of the greatest country on earth? You got to do it the right way. You got to respect our laws.
Democrat Stacey Abrams ended her campaign and said she cannot win.
I acknowledge that former Secretary of State Brian Kemp will be certified as the victor in the 2018 gubernatorial election. This is not a speech of concession.
Democratic Senator Bill Nelson's chances of holding on to his seat slipping away. Nancy Pelosi keeping her friends close and her potential enemies a bit closer.
There's a great deal of hope and excitement about the fact that there could be new leadership.
President Trump now taking on a new report questioning Vice President Mike Pence's loyalty.
I don't question his loyalty at all. It was a phony story.
I'm glad the president put this to rest. I don't know why it needed to be put to rest. He had addressed it at the press conference the other day.
We honor the recipients of our nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The king of rock and roll, Elvis Aaron Presley.
I know, they brought in something.
The package is already open.
What is this?
It's already out. Somebody put it.
Oh,
you're going to eat it.
Oh, yes, the moment I've been waiting for.
It doesn't look good.
Just a little bite, just a little bite.
He did it.
He did it.
Good sport.
Props for doing it.
What do you think?
Tastes like dog food.
Have you had dog food before?
I've tried it.
Listen, if you make
This is the real
seitan
thing,
correctly, it can be delicious.
Oh, look at the real thing. He's going in.
Oh.
Well, we are going to be enjoying.
No one loves meat more than this guy. I've never seen it.
We're enjoying some smoked turkey later this hour. We're going to have some goodies out there.
This is horrific.
Thanksgiving came a little
It's
early.
not prepared properly in its defense.
In its defense.
defense.
The president, meanwhile, heading out to California to deal with the wildfires, obviously. But before heading out there, he's at the White House and talked turkey a little bit of his own, if you will, the politics of the day, talking about Nancy Pelosi, talking about Saudi Arabia, and talking about the caravan. He had these critics saying in recent days it was just an election ploy. He only talked about the caravan before the election. Not true. He's tweeting about it after the election, and today he's lashing out and making clear that he's not happy about it.
I can't talk.
Oh, you can't talk? All right. So let's hear from the president.
We're not letting people into our country illegally, and we're not doing a release. We'll do a catch, but we're not doing releases. They come up and they're talking about all their great fear, all their problems with their country, but they're all waving their country's flag. What is that all about? If they have such fear and such problems and they hate their country, why do we see all the flags being waved? For Guatemala, for Honduras, for El Salvador, we're seeing flags all over the place. Why are they waving flags? This has nothing to do with asylum. This has to do with getting into our country illegally. And we have to know who wants to come into our country.
Jedediah, I was trying to be a good teammate and tee up Pete. I didn't realize he had his mouth full. Now I figured out how to shut him up.
Yeah, exactly.
But the president really lashing out and saying enough is enough.
Yeah, you know, that's one of the common sense points that someone like Donald Trump makes, which reminds me why he got elected. Because you're sitting there and you're watching these people that are supposedly hungry to come to the United States, fleeing places that are horrific, that, you know, fleeing crime and unlivable conditions, and they are holding up flags of those countries, and you sit here and it's almost, it's an easy point, but at the same time you say, wait a second, that really does make a lot of sense.
I don't know if we could put some of those images up, especially the one of the long banner, all young men carrying a banner and flag of their country. All I can think of is the last time as a young man I wore a flag of my country, and it wasn't because I hated what's in front of me. It's because I loved what was behind me. Because I loved my country so much, I would wear the flag and go out and fight and die for it. So presidents make a very important point here. If you love your country so much, then go to your country and fix it, or be a part of the solution. Don't carry a flag to our country, then stand on top of a fence and mock us and our Border Patrol agents saying we're coming no matter what, or we're going to mass. That one individual we heard from a couple days ago saying we want to bum rush the border, it's us against Trump. I mean, that is the absolute wrong mindset, instead of coming humbly and saying, we hear there's this great place called America, and I want to come here legally and be a part of it. We welcome that.
And when they're waving the flag of their home country, it turns on its head the idea that they want to seek asylum here and run away from that country that they're celebrating. Tom Homan, the former ICE director, last hour pointing out this irony.
In my 34 years, I never watched a group of people who are supposedly escaping fear and persecution from their home governments carrying the flag of their oppressors. The facts are you can only claim political asylum if you can show you're escaping fear and persecution because your race, religion, social affiliation, political affiliation, Poverty and seeking a job and reuniting with somebody who's already in this country legally doesn't qualify.
And a lot of you pointed out a number of times on this program, Ed, that critics are saying, well, he talked about it during the election, hasn't talked about it since. You have to be a cynic to believe this is something he's only raised cynically. This is something he's been passionate about from the beginning of his candidacy in multiple iterations. Now there's a showdown, and he's serious about it.
That's a great word, too, you said before while he was talking, the word oppressor, because you have to remember these people that are carrying these flags of these home countries, they're not just fleeing lack of economic opportunity. That wouldn't warrant asylum. These are people fleeing unlivable, violent conditions where they feel that their lives, the lives of their families are threatened. It is very bizarre that you would want to celebrate a place where you don't feel safe enough for you or your family to live. That does warrant question as to what's happening.
Well, the other narrative the president pushing back on, he's heard the mainstream media ever since the midterms say, boy, the president took it on the chin because Democrats took the House. Well, the president says that may be true, but he also increased his majority in the Senate, something the media spends a lot less time on. And also the media not wanting to talk quite as much about the fact that Nancy Pelosi is having trouble within her own caucus. And the fact is she wants to be Speaker of the House. Now she has Marcia Fudge looking at another Democrat looking at running against her for Speaker. They met behind closed doors yesterday. Fudge came out of there saying, I want to think about this a little longer. I'm going to think about it over Thanksgiving. Let Pelosi twist in the wind, as about 20 lawmakers say that they're signing a letter saying they'll never support her as Speaker. The president may be getting a little mischievous here by telling reporters, I want her to be Speaker. Watch.
I would help Nancy Pelosi if she needs some votes. I like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she's tough and she's smart, but she deserves to be Speaker. And now they're playing games with her, just like they'll be playing with me with, it's called presidential harassment. The president of your country is doing a great job, but he's being harassed. In a way, her own party's harassing her. There's nobody else should be Speaker. If she needs any votes, if she asks me, I will give her the votes to put her over the top.
Almost 20 Democrats have now come out and say they're part of the Never Nancy approach for Speaker of the House. And the reason that number is important, Ed, we were just talking about it.
Yeah.
The majority for Democrats in the House is at, or it's still fluctuating, but it's at around 15, 16, 17 votes. Well, if you lose 17, 18, 19 members of the Democratic caucus,
you don't have the votes.
You don't have the votes unless you have Republican votes.
The latest Democrat, Spanberger, representative-elect, I believe she took out Dave Bratt. She's now saying that she's not likely to support, you see her there, former CIA official, she's now saying she's not likely to support Pelosi. So it's around 20 or so Democrats saying they won't support her. That's more than the opposition needs to block her.
Why do I feel like she doesn't want President Trump's support?
I know, but I love it. I love him out there. It's like Trump's going to lead the campaign to make sure she gets it up. She's probably sitting at home like, shh, stop it, please. And he's like, no, Pelosi.
You know how
love
many,
it.
You know how many Republicans would probably eagerly cast that vote? Like, sort of
I know.
Also,
they need her. They need her in those campaign ads.
They deserve Nancy.
They want to keep her.
They want to keep her there.
That's real palace intrigue. I don't think, a lot of people assumed it would be her. If you get enough, it's kind of like the Freedom Caucus with Bills and Republicans. If you get enough members that say, we're ready to turn the page, and you just don't have the votes, you have a really tough decision to make. Does she have to declare she'll be a transitional one-term speaker, which some people think would allow her to get that role?
Yeah.
We shall see.
We shall see what happens.
Because you had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in a sit-in in Pelosi's office this week on climate change and other issues, saying that the left is not happy with their leadership.
The hard left. The hard left, the Democratic Party is going to emerge.
I know what I'm going to do in my first week in Congress. A sit-in in my leader's office.
Well, though, it is her way to kind of say, I got elected and I'm here and I'm going to start working day one. And the Bernie Sanders and the Ocasio-Cortezes, they are very passionate about what they want to do.
Right.
So.
And the other problem Democrats have right now is they won't admit defeat in places like Georgia, we've been talking about this morning, and Florida as well. 11 days after the midterms, Democrat Stacey Abrams ends her bid for Georgia governor, but she isn't going down without a fight.
And in Florida, she also won't concede. The manual recount enters its second day, and it's not looking good for incumbent Democrat Senator Bill Nelson.
That's where we find Griff Jenkins, who's live in Broward County, where hand-counted votes have been completed. Griff, what's the latest?
Good morning, guys. Senator Nelson's political career began in 1972, about 2 hours north of here, and it will likely end here in Broward County because the votes simply aren't here. Let me take you inside right now where they're counting some other races, but Broward was Nelson's best shot at flipping the Senate race. We were told there were 25,000 votes here. It's not the case. Out of 31,000 over-under votes counted yesterday, only 447 could go Nelson's way. That's just not enough. We'll see if Nelson concedes tomorrow at noon when official results come in. But you mentioned Georgia. Democrat Stacey Abrams ended her race for governor against Republican Brian Kemp without actually conceding. Take a listen.
This is not a speech of concession, because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. We will be filing a major federal lawsuit against the state of Georgia for the gross mismanagement of this election.
And Abrams also announced plans to file a federal lawsuit over how Georgia runs their elections. Guys, back to you.
All right, Griff.
Thanks, Griff.
He's been traveling all around.
He has. He has.
It's
a tough job.
Or
sleeps.
Or showers. He showers.
You took it to a next level. Turning now to your headlines. President Trump left for California this morning, where he will visit victims of the devastating wildfires. At least 74 people are dead, 71 alone in the North's Camp Fire. More than 1,000 others still missing. Residents are now facing a new threat as hazardous smoke is smothering the state. Millions of people are forced to wear masks amid the dirtiest air quality levels in the world. In Southern California, more evacuees are returning home. Moments before leaving the White House, President reacted to new CIA report that the Saudi Crown Prince ordered Jamal Khashoggi's murder.
The CIA is going to be speaking to me today. We have not been briefed yet. As of this moment, we were told that he did not play a role. We're going to have to find out what they have to say.
The Saudi Crown Prince has denied having any role in the journalist's brutal death. The Supreme Court is agreeing to hear whether or not a citizenship question should be added to the 2020 census. They'll listen to arguments on February 19th from more than 24 states, cities, and activist groups who are suing to get it removed. They believe immigrants will be too scared to answer the question, which will skew numbers and could affect the amount of federal money they get. And those are your headlines.
That one is really interesting to me. No, sincerely, because you feel like a country should be able to ask whether or not you're a citizen of that country on a census. It makes sense, but man, the left hates it. We'll see what the Supreme Court does. All right, well, he was facing the rest of his life in prison, but now a selfie is clearing him of the crime. I don't even know what the story is. It sounds really interesting. We'll bring it to you coming up.
The president speaking out about those questions for special counsel Robert Mueller.
Easily, you have to always be careful when you answer questions with people that probably have bad intentions. They're not very difficult questions.
It's a hoax, he's been saying, and that can mean only one thing. Greg Jarrett is here.
No, we do that next week. They're all done. What? We haven't even talked about it.
That was President Trump earlier this morning telling reporters that he has completed his written answers for Mueller, but has not yet submitted them.
Here to react, Fox News legal analyst and author of The Russia Hoax, Greg Jarrett. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everybody.
What does this all mean? Where are we in the Mueller investigations? Does it suggest it's finally winding down?
Oh, I think it is. Probably in the next couple of months, there'll be a report. And I suspect that Mueller will throw some red meat to the hungry Democrats in some sort of criticism of the president. But look, the president said he answered the questions very easily. Well, it should have taken about 5 minutes. The first question was probably, did you ever coordinate or collude with Russians during the election? Answer, no. Do you know anybody else who did? Answer, no. Beyond that, there's not much to ask. Obstruction was off the table, correctly so. But never underestimate a lawyer like Mueller who asks irrelevant, unnecessary questions.
You know, if you look at the exit polling on this, people are now saying that they consider this to be vastly political, what's gone on. You have, I'm looking up there, 41% say it's politically motivated, 54%. 54% say it's politically motivated. Yeah. Sorry, 44%. Sorry. And I'm just wondering if you think that's accurate. What do you think the public at this point is thinking when they look at this?
Americans are smart. They can smell a rotten investigation a mile away. There's no reason to believe there was ever any evidence of collusion. And the best evidence of that, by the way, is the testimony, the deposition testimony of the top FBI lawyer a couple of months ago, Lisa Page, when she confessed that during the entire time the FBI had the case, they never discovered a whiff of collusion. And that's important because it means that when they handed it off to a special counsel, they were violating the law, because the regulations say in order to appoint a special counsel, you have to have some evidence of a crime. And here's an admission They never had it.
Speaking of violations, the GOP may subpoena James Comey in its final days in power during the lame duck session of the House. Why are they doing so? What would they ask?
A lot of questions. I mean, it would take me about 2 days to question Comey, but at the top of my list is, what legal justification did you ever have for launching the Trump-Russia investigation? Isn't it true, Mr. Comey, that your FBI was meeting with the author of the phony dossier on the very day you cleared Hillary Clinton? And isn't it true you deceived and concealed vital evidence from the FISA court to spy on an American citizen, a Trump campaign associate? There's a lot to ask.
Real quick, James Comey tweeted this out yesterday, his side of it. He says, House Republicans can ask me anything they want, but I want the American people to watch. So let's have a public hearing. Truth, he says, is best served by transparency. Let me know when it's convenient. So he's saying a lot of people have been brought in for questioning behind closed doors. I want to do it in public.
Yeah.
Is that because he wants to grandstand, or is that because he really wants to tell his side of the story?
Comey is vainglorious and in love with himself. He loves the television cameras and the attention. You don't get to negotiate your testimony before Congress. And the reason they want to do it in a closed session is because they know in public Comey would say, oh, that's privileged, that's confidential, that's classified, and he'd grandstand in front of the television cameras. They want meaningful information from Comey, and the only way to get that is in a deposition closed session.
All right. Good stuff. Greg Jarrett, thanks a lot for your time.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much.
All right, well, President Trump calling out the caravan, saying this has nothing to do with asylum, and the migrants holding their nation's flags must be politically organized. Geraldo Rivera here to react to that live coming up. It's a new partnership. The U.S. is joining Australia to develop a naval base on that island. And federal prosecutors are negotiating a possible plea deal for alleged Russian agent Maria Butina. She's accused of infiltrating American political organizations to advance Russian interests. The court date has been pushed back so that negotiations can continue. And in a third story, President Trump is beefing up our country's defense on cyber attacks. A new bill signed into law creates the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, that's a mouthful, to protect critical infrastructure like elections systems.
Well, interesting. You heard the president a short time ago slamming members of the migrant caravan for seeking asylum in America, while at the same time he said they were waving their own country's flags.
They come up and they're talking about all their great fear, all their problems with their country, but they're all waving their country's flag. What is that all about? If they have such fear and such problems and they hate their country, why do we see all the flags being waved? For Guatemala, for Honduras, for El Salvador, we're seeing flags all over the place. Why are they waving flags? This has nothing to do with asylum.
Well, here to tell the president what that's all about is Fox News correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera. Good to see you, Geraldo.
You too, Ed. How's everybody doing?
Everyone's great.
Hi.
I see you tweeting about this subject right before you came on, and Major Hegseth wants to have at you. But at first, I want to give you a chance to give your position and react to the president.
Thank you. You know, I don't like to unnecessarily criticize my friend, the president. I think he's beleaguered by a hostile press, and he's doing much better than he's generally credited for. But he's also a native New Yorker, as am I. And we have grown up watching the various components of the big city come together for their ethnic and religious and national parades every single day in New York. There's the Puerto Rican Day Parade, the Dominican, the Greek, the Italian, the Irish, the Israeli, you name it. People can love where they are in the United States and still love where they came from. This is a group, and I wish that the president would focus on this. This is a group, generally speaking, who are impoverished, who want a job. We have 7 million unfilled jobs, particularly in the agricultural sector, fruits and vegetables dying on the vine. I wish our businessman president was figuring out how to bring those workers to fill those necessary jobs in an orderly and regulated way.
So, Geraldo, we're talking about parades here of American citizens being proud of their country, which I totally understand. But the disposition of someone to say, I'm going to carry my flag to your country, demand that I be let in, or come in illegally, and when I'm on the top of the border wall, I'm going to taunt your Border Patrol agents. I just think if I had to leave, God forbid, America for some reason and go to another country, you would have to go, you'd want people to go with a heart of humility, to say, listen, I'm coming here Will you offer me the opportunity to be a part of the fabric of your country? It looks like the exact opposite. The optics are terrible, and you got young men, you got gang members a part of it, as we've seen reported. I mean, is he not right to understandably point out that disposition as a problem?
I think you're being way too harsh, Major, with all due respect. I think that these are very unsophisticated people. They are, generally speaking, an undereducated or uneducated group. They cling to some symbols of stability in their lives. All they want to do is feed their children. You have the poorest
but that's
people,
not
some
asylum.
of the poorest
That's
people
not why
on
they're
earth.
coming,
Wait 1 second. You have some of the poorest people on earth living next door to the richest country on earth. The richest country on earth has a labor demand and a tradition of welcoming these people, however sub rosa, however under the table, to fill these jobs and to pick the apricots and the avocados and the wash the dishes and take care of the babies and mow the lawns and deliver the pizzas and so forth. I mean, we've had this irregular relationship. What I would like to see, even as the president gets the wall that he has earned. He's earned the wall. I've withdrawn my criticism of the wall. Now give the dreamers their path to citizenship, and why not reopen? Here's something logical. Reopen the old program, the old Bracero program, where we welcomed hundreds of thousands of these workers on a temporary seasonal basis.
Geraldo,
they come in, they do the harvest, and then we send them home. We even provide
Geraldo,
flights for them.
let me just interrupt you for 1 second, though, because people seeking asylum are not, this is not about economic opportunity for when it comes to asylum. These are people who are claiming that there are credible threats of violence, that they cannot live in these communities because of gangs, because of rape, because of extreme violence. That's why I think President Trump is coming out and saying, why are you carrying flags representing a place that you're saying we should deem unlivable for you and a reason for you to want to come to the United States? If we were just talking about economic opportunity, I think people would see it a little bit differently, but these are places that are unlivable, supposedly. You wouldn't want to hold up that flag, especially if you're fleeing.
Jedediah, with great wisdom as usual, and you go right to the point. The whole asylum stuff and the exaggeration of the peril that awaits them in their home countries is just because asylum is the only way they really get the due process hearing once they cross the border. Otherwise, they're just illegal, they're just detained, and they are ultimately deported. If they claim asylum once they set foot in a port of entry on U.S. soil, U.S. law requires that they have a due process hearing. Yes. Just like Jim Acosta, when he gets his press pass yanked, he gets a due process hearing. That's what, I didn't mean to confuse people there, but that's why they claim asylum in the vast majority of cases. They do it because that's an angle that they can play. Right. The vast majority, and everybody gets it. It's
but you're arguing
a wink
for law,
and a nod. Everybody knows this because
you can't have wink and a nod be your policy forever.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
all right. Justice Kavanaugh wanted due process as well. That's for another day. Geraldo, appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Geraldo.
Thank you, sir.
Good to
appreciate
see you.
it.
One teacher thanks students for standing for the national anthem, and then he says he lost his job for doing it. Details coming up.
Plus, all the left wants for Christmas, well, they don't even want to say Christmas. They prefer to say holidays. But if they do, they want politics in or out. How about you? Your emails have been flowing in.
And we are getting into the holiday spirit on Fox Square, how you can free up your oven by smoking your turkey this Thanksgiving.
Look at the crowd we got now.
Woo! Look at
They're
that.
fired up.
Yum.
Let's stop talking politics to each other. Everyone these days says that the way to bridge our frightful partisan divide is to talk to the other side so we can hear each other's point of view. No, that's exactly what you shouldn't do. It never works. No one ever flips to your side. Thanksgiving is in a few days. And that means spending time with family and in-laws, some of whom we may not agree with politically. Just don't go there. How do we bridge the partisan divide? I'll tell you how. Shut the up.
tolerance, Hollywood style.
So much Christmas cheer.
Yeah.
Well, Whoopi Goldberg got into the mix, too, telling Page 6 of the New York Post that I want everybody to take a break from politics and enjoy their families regardless of what your politics are.
Dad gets mad at me. He says, wait a minute. He used to say to me, wait a minute, you get to talk politics with Whoopi Goldberg and I don't get to talk it with you at the dinner table? And I'd be like,
Come on, Dad. Don't get mad at Jen. She's nice. All right.
There you go.
You've been emailing us all morning.
Yeah, here's an email from Joe. My family remains very divided when it comes to politics. New rule established in 2016. No politics, period, at family gatherings, and all is good.
We have an email from Mark. My best friend is a Democrat. I am a hard right conservative. So why are we friends? Because we never, ever talk politics. That's a great point.
An email from Marsha. My family are all Republicans. We love to talk politics on holidays. We are so happy to be winning. Listen, I love talking politics with anybody.
You don't
of any
say,
stripe.
Pete.
No, but
I'm
even
shocked.
with liberals, with anybody of good nature.
Yeah.
Like, I love talking about it. So the idea that you got to sit there and not talk about it.
I think that's the thing, though. If you can do it in a way that doesn't ruin the Thanksgiving dinner, that's great. I think what people are trying to say is let's not make it a big fight because there's so many fights that go on every day. Maybe don't have that fight at the Christmas Eve
not
table.
tired of winning. All right.
All right, we are turning now to your headlines. The man who tried to assassinate President Reagan is now allowed to live on his own. A federal judge granted John Hinckley Jr. the most freedom he's had since shooting President Reagan and 3 others in 1981. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity. He's been living with his elderly mother in Williamsburg, Virginia. Hinckley will be able to live alone in the area with restrictions. A Texas man avoids a possible 99-year prison sentence thanks to this selfie. Christopher Procopia was accused of breaking into his ex-girlfriend's home and attacking her by carving an X into her chest. But thankfully, his mother remembered about posting the photo on Facebook, which was from the same time as the alleged 2017 attack.
By the grace of God, this, she said it happened on the day that I can totally 100% say where he was at.
Wow, the 21-year-old has been cleared of all charges. And listen to this, millennials are pranking their moms ahead of Thanksgiving, texting the question, how long does it take to cook a turkey in the microwave? That's great. These responses are hilarious. One mom writing, is this a joke? Don't ever get married. Christian's mother blaming herself, saying, I should have never let you move out. And Justin's mom writing, it takes 3 years. And those are your headlines. Now to the boys who are hanging out outside.
Jedediah, we are outside. You're absolutely right. Yeah, we're eating. So earlier, we showed you how to deep fry your Thanksgiving turkey. We've been eating off of this turkey all morning long, and it has been spectacular. Now we are here to figure out how to smoke the turkey. John McLemore's back here from Dadgum.
That's good.
Too.
So everybody at Masterbuilt, we're going to show you folks how to free up your oven this year and smoke your turkey breast. We're going to show you how to do an apple cider vinegar and honey injectable marinade. You blend 8 ounces of apple cider vinegar, 3 ounces of honey on a medium heat, and add a little cayenne pepper, blend that together, and inject about 1 ounce per pound in all sides of your turkey breast.
Like Botox.
Yeah, it looks like Botox. Then we're going to take.
But it looks like it.
We're going to take a bacon weave.
Like to inject
Everything tastes better with bacon. There you go. And we're going to wrap that onto
I feel like I can make a bacon weave.
See how easy that is? Now,
like that.
You're going to put that on the Masterbuilt smoker at 275 degrees for about 2.5 to 3 hours.
This is the Masterbuilt smoker.
And this is the Masterbuilt smoker. And we're going to show you how to take that off super quick. And when you take a look, we've got some smoked mac and cheese. We've got bacon wrapped, smoked.
John, hurry up
turkey
and get
breast.
that food out here.
We got to get the food
Let's
out
go
here.
right here. What up? There you go. So
bring it, slice it. We want to eat it.
Yes.
And we're going to send it back. John McLemore, thank you very much.
Everybody go to masterbuilt.com for some amazing recipes and
And we have to go to commercial.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Let's get back to Jedediah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much. Thanks, guys. Looks delicious out there. Well, panic is erupting on a school bus after the driver tells kids they're not going home because they were being too noisy.
Get my son off the bus now!
Shocking video is coming up next. And Stacey Abrams bowing out of the race for governor in Georgia, but won't admit she's lost. So why won't Democrats give up the fight? We'll debate that coming up next.
You should see the plate of food that Peaches put together. Anyway, some quick headlines. A substitute teacher claims he's banned from school because he thanks students for standing up during the Pledge of Allegiance.
I say thank you very much, all of you that participated. I appreciate that. And I'm sure all those families that lost loved ones so that we could have the freedoms that we have today would appreciate that too.
A student who stayed seated complained because they were offended for being called out. The Missouri School District said the teacher could work at other schools, just not that one. And parents are outraged after a school bus driver refuses to let their kids off the bus.
Get my son off the bus now!
Elementary students in Kansas crying and screaming for help after they were allegedly told they would not be going home because they were being too noisy. The district said the driver followed policy, which instructs the drivers to pull over if the students get out of control. Jed?
Well, Stacey Abrams, the Democrat in Georgia's governor race, acknowledged Friday that she cannot defeat her Republican opponent, Brian Kemp, but would not officially concede the race.
I acknowledge that former Secretary of State Brian Kemp will be certified as the victor in the 2018 gubernatorial election. But to watch an elected official who claims to represent the people in this state baldly pin his hopes for election on the suppression of the people's democratic right to vote has been truly appalling. So let's be clear. This is not a speech of concession.
So as Republican candidates in both Florida and Georgia are set to win governorships, why won't Democrats give up the fight? Here to debate, RNC spokesperson Kayleigh McEnany and Fox News contributor Jessica Tarlov. Kayleigh, I want to start with you. What is this pattern now that I seem to be seeing of Democrats lose elections, they refuse to concede, and then they say, well, I lost because you stole it or you cheated? That seems to be a pattern that's developing in more places than one. Or two.
Oh, no doubt about it. We see it in Florida's Senate race. We see it in Georgia's governor race. Democrats are being sore losers. They refuse to acknowledge they lost the election. So what do? They cry malfeasance, wrongdoing, criminality, fraud. And the real irony of this is you just heard Stacey Abrams talk about Kemp engaging in voter suppression. On the contrary, back in 2 years ago, 7 of 9 precincts were going to be closed in Randolph County. That's a majority African-American county. Brian Kemp voted to keep those publicly said, let's keep those precincts open. Ironically, 5 of those precincts kept open went on to vote for President Trump. And meanwhile, the only real evidence of fraud we have, Jedediah, is here in my great state of Florida, where the Democratic Party altered official forms. That is a criminal act. It's being investigated, and it was reported by USA Today. So the fraud was by the Democrats, but nevertheless, they're crying it out loud.
Jessica, is it justified, in your opinion, what the Democrats are doing? You see Stacey Abrams talking about, disenfranchised voters, and what you see going on. Do you see it as being justified, them not conceding these elections?
Oh, well, she is conceding the election. She said Brian Kemp won it, but she still wanted to.
But she won't concede. She won't call it a concession.
You're hinging on this one word there. I think Stacey Abrams has been very clear that Brian Kemp will be the next governor of Georgia. The results are being certified, and that will go on. But to not use this moment where she has national attention to make sure that the American public knows that in Georgia, 214 polling places were closed. 53,000 Georgians are still waiting to get registered when he won by a margin of 55,000. That some people waited over 4 hours to exercise their constitutional right to vote. And these are mostly black and brown communities. And there were voting machines that didn't have power cords, and that the candidate himself was overseeing it, I think would be a mistake. And I'm sure that if this was going on in the reverse, and this was a Democrat that was doing it, Kayleigh and I would be having a very different discussion here. And to say that we're the ones that yell voter fraud, the President of the United States of America alleged voter fraud when there was not. Rick Scott has done it. And look what happened in 2016 with the Voter Fraud Commission that found nothing. Nothing.
Kayleigh, just quickly, your response to what Jessica said about Georgia. Are those things the responsibility of Kemp? Was he responsible for voter suppression in that state?
No, so there are some key facts left out. First, those 214 polling locations that closed, Brian Kemp was not responsible for that. That was counties that decided to close those locations. Many of them were rural precincts where folks were not showing up, they were underutilized, or they were not compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act, so they were in violation of the law. That is why those polling locations were closed. Brian Kemp, as I noted, has stood against voter suppression out loud. And when Rick Scott talks about fraud, when President Trump talks about fraud, it's because it exists. USA Today reported the Democratic Party of Florida altered official voting forms. That happened, that existed, that is fraud. And I understand it's inconvenient for Democrats to talk about, but it exists, and it's true, and it's real, and it's the Democratic Party of Florida.
Well, thank you both, Kayleigh, Jessica, for being here.
Thanks,
it's an important topic, and guys at home,
Thank you.
let us know what you think. 17 years after the September 11th attacks, cancer has taken the lives of some of our first responders, including this 9/11 firefighter that passed away last year. His daughter has now made it her mission to raise awareness and save the lives of others, and you at home have even helped. Her inspiring story is coming up next.
Brian Kemp by a big margin since election night, but she and her team of lawyers fought on. Just this morning, they were considering a legal challenge that would have sought to order another round of voting on the grounds of alleged voter suppression and fraud. But this afternoon, bowing to reality, apparently, Abrams announced she'd be dropping her legal challenges, and that effectively ended the race. And yet Abrams refused to actually concede. In fact, in her remarks, which are so Orwellian, you should go on the internet and watch them, the woman who got fewer votes than her opponent said that, we're quoting now, democracy failed in Georgia. Well, the Senate race in Florida is still dragging on, though. Hand recounts of some ballots are continuing across the state, but the Democrat in the Senate race, Bill Nelson, doesn't look like he will win. His path to victory is getting very narrow at this point. Craig Patrick is political editor and chief investigator for Fox 13 in Tampa Bay. He's been on every night this week. We're going to miss the recount because we're going to miss having him on, but he joins us tonight. Craig, what is going on?
Well, the hand recount is going to continue until Sunday, but we can tell you that Bill Nelson is surely doomed. And he is doomed in large part because he had placed his hopes and his trust in Broward County, which, as we've seen a time or two, that's kind of like placing your trust and hope in Harry Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber. But the irony here is that Bill Nelson thought that Broward County would be dumber and less effective than it actually was, because there were some 30,000 votes that had flown through the machines, not once, but twice, that did not register a vote, mostly Democrats, in Broward County. So Nelson was saying, these machines, Broward, here you go again. But what we found out today is when election workers looked at those ballots by hand, they discovered that the scanners didn't register votes because most of the voters, around 98%, left that race blank. Maybe these Democrats didn't vote for Rick Scott because he's a Republican. Maybe they didn't vote for Bill Nelson because he's Bill Nelson. Who knows? But that's the fact of the matter here. And with this, it puts Bill Nelson in an impossible position. There is chatter and speculation. Some Democrats said they couldn't see the race on the ballot because it had been tucked in the lower left, and perhaps a poor ballot design by Broward County. But even so, that's just tough luck for Nelson. There's history for that, too. Remember, Tucker, I know you do, in Palm Beach County when it designed the butterfly ballot in 2000 that Democrats wound up tricking Democrats into voting for Pat Buchanan. And Democrats will never forgive themselves for that. I don't think they will ever forgive themselves for this. But either way, it doesn't matter because once all is said and done, it'll be certified on Tuesday. Rick Scott is going to Washington, and Bill Nelson is going to get the home version of the game.
Democrats voted for Pat Buchanan. Thank you for reminding me that. That was really a high point in the history of the state of Florida. I just love that. Craig, thank you for that and for all of your updates this week. They've been great.
Thank you.
President Trump says he's ready to answer the Mueller investigation's questions, but is Mueller ready to produce any evidence of collusion with Russia? That's next. Well, the president says he's finished writing his answers to questions he received from the Mueller team over at the independent counsel investigation. His lawyers say the answers will be turned over very soon. Meanwhile, more than 36 sealed indictments have been lodged in federal court here in Washington. Some speculate at least some of these could be from Mueller. Dan Bongino was a former Secret Service agent, NRA TV contributor, author of the book Spygate, The Attempted Sabotage of Donald J. Trump, and he joins us tonight. Dan, thanks a lot for coming on. So if at some point we're going to find out who's going to be indicted, clearly people are going to be indicted, and if those indictments are for crimes